Hey everyone, I'm here today with the game Banish the Snakes, which is a game from GMT, and it's by Kevin McPartland and Jerry Shiles. And I thought I'd go over the game and go over some of the things that I found that weren't quite as clear as I wanted in the rule book and show you how to play. So let's take a look at how to play the game. Okay, so I have the game all set up here, and we'll go over setup real quick so you can understand that. I'm not going to actually set up all the different people, but they're already out here. And so let's just take an example one here. We have like a 1, 5, and a 5. Why did that end up that way? Well, everywhere on the board where it says people is in here, here, here. Oh, that's not a people, that's a chieftain. So we'll just grab a random one, and there's a 2. Okay, so here we have 2, 3, 4. Basically, you're gonna go in ascending order, left to right. So people, 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 people. And let's just do this last one. We'll grab some random people out of our pile over here and see what we get. And we're gonna get a 3, a 3, a 3. No, that's odd. Okay, and a 5. All right. So what those go in order of is lowest to highest, and those go all in those different areas on the board. So we have 4 different provinces in Ireland, and then those are split up into different areas. So every area has its own people that can later get flipped over to a flock side, which I have stickered. You don't have to, but they have a little shamrock on that side. Then we have druids. Druids start with this holly looking thing here on the left space. In every area there's going to be a druid. And then we have chiefs. I haven't put one out yet here. I'm just going to grab a random one and place a chief here. And they go up in their negative side. So if you can see that, they have here, maybe I'll put it over, we'll switch over here. So here is a chief on its negative side, and as we place them out, they go out in all these different spaces. So there's a chief there, and then after we've done the druids, the chiefs, the peoples, then we will do kings. So there are kings here, 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 and here. We'll get kings, and those are just like chiefs too, where they get a king. And then we have the high king that has these purple blocks, and we put a high king there in the same sort of way, just randomly setting all that up. And then once that's done, we make sure our deck has no cards that say from Scotland, from Strathclyde, or from England in it. Those are going to be set to the side here. We shuffle this deck, except we don't put the Arthur, King of the Britons card. That goes here because that's going to be our first key card. I'll explain more about those in a second. And then we put the from Scotland, from Strathclyde, and from England cards here. We have the England Christian pagan token here, same for Strathclyde, same for Scotland, and then we have the paganism token that goes at start. Now this game plays 1 to 6 players cooperatively, and every player is going to pick a starting saint. At the very bottom of these cards, you're going to see something that says at start historic or deck version. So if you pick, let's say I pick Secundius here. If I pick Secundius, I can't, for my at start saint, and let's say I just do that and place him over here on my player mat, then I can't put Secundius into the deck, because what we're going to do is we're going to take 6 saints that we don't pick, and they're going to go into that deck and get shuffled in there too. So let's just say I pick, let's say for an at start version, I like to pick someone like, let's see, I like the at start historic, so I'm going to pick Palladius and Patrick, and maybe one more. I'll pick Secundius. So Secundius and Patrick and Palladius are going to go over here onto my 3. I know you can't see the third one, but I have 3 because I can pick how many I want to in cooperative, in solo cooperative modes, and I'm going to take them all, place them on my player mats, and there are some special rules for setup for Palladius and Patrick because they'd be a little bit overpowered. So they all start this way, but I will say that Palladius starts with his Zeal marker 2 over to the right. Still is going to get 4 action points on their turn, but Secundius starts on their Zeal over here to the far left, and Patrick has their Zeal, one Zeal moved over. So it's kind of like they're aging out. It's just balancing out what they're doing. But they each get 3 markers, one for the Zeal, one for action, and one to help you just track conversion attempt scoring. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But after you've chosen your starting 6, then you're going to take 6 that you didn't choose. I like to take the deck versions of the historic ones that I didn't choose. So I'm going to take Segundius out, and let's see here. There's 5 left here. So I could take another deck historic. I'm going to take Columba. So I'm just making sure here that everybody I put in here, Columba, Brendan, Ibar, Menon, Finian, and Brigid, these 6 are not the ones that I picked to play with, and you can't put them into the deck if they're ones you've picked to play with. So you just take those, you mix them in well to your starting deck. That deck or your draw deck is going to get more cards over the course of the game, but right now that's what you're going to start with. And then you can set everything else aside that says at start or deck version. You're not going to need any of those anymore. Let's take a look at the deck real quick. The draw deck has a certain number of cards here that has the 6 Saints that we've added into it and everything that isn't from Strathclyde, from England and Scotland at this point. We have this Arthur, King of the Britons card here for our first key card, and you'll see that underneath here. After that is out here, then you're going to on each player's turn, or if you're playing solo on each Saint's turn, you're going to flip these, and what you do is you read from the top down. There's some flavor text, there's a title, and then there might be, like this one says, lose 1 Zeal. There might be something that you have to do, and then after that, you're still going to do whatever is down here in the section that relates to the key card. So at this point, this one has a blue, so I would do the blue section down here that says remove 1 people in your area and replace it with a new pagan people. And that's actually a great example. So let's talk about that and how that works in the game as far as removing. This is something that I wish maybe had been a little bit clear. But when you're removing people, let's say I was, so we know that Palladius is always going to have to start over here in Egonot, and then maybe Patrick was up here and Segundius was over here, something like that. So that maybe our starting positions. And let's say I had already done some work converting people here. I had maybe converted this chief already, and this druid was removed, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But maybe there's a level 0 church, this chief was converted, and I've started converting people in my area. Well, that card says remove 1 people in your area and replace it with new pagan people. I'm always, when I replace people, I'm always going to start with any flocks I have. The leftmost one, remove that, and then replace it with a new pagan people, reordering these if necessary. Basically, it gives it the chance that there might be a harder pagan that's going to come out here. Now, if I have to remove pagans, I'm always going to remove the leftmost one. So like in an area over here where it is 1, 5, and 5, I'm going to remove the one which is easiest for me to convert in the game. We haven't really talked about conversion, but we will more in a second. After I do anything that the card says for me to do, then I'm going to take my turn. But this very first turn, you're going to take that Arthur, King of the Britons card, place it into the Scotland deck. And when you get to the point where Scotland becomes pagan, that card along with all the rest of the Scotland cards are going to get put into the deck. That's the only card in the game in which you actually move the paganism track backwards and become less pagan. Be on the lookout for that card, that Arthur, King of the Britons card. Again, it is right here. It's a pretty cool card. It works out well for you. From then on in the game, at the end of a player's turn, the former event card is going to become the new key card. And then after it's done being a key card, it moves up into the discard pile. And there are arrows on here to remind you of that. But on your turn, there's a number of things you can do. Let's talk about those things real quick. In an area, when you convert someone, you're always going to look at the influence diagram. Now, this is on page 10 of the rule book, and this is one of those things that I wish had been explained a little bit clearer, but basically you have to convert druids first, because if you don't, they have infinite power or infinite influence in their area. So you're going to be going up against those druids and debating them. That's one of the actions you can take, is just to try to convert people. And you use the slider on your board where there are modifiers. So let's say I flip this druid over here, and the druid is a -5. There we go, -5 druid. So this druid, I flip it after I'm ready to convert it. If I just flip that right now, that means with the druid being a 5, I need a 5 or higher just for nothing to happen. The only way that that druid is going to get converted is I need a 6. But if I were to say prepare, which is another action I can do with my different action points. So maybe I prepared 3 times on my turn because I was afraid of the druid and I didn't know. I was getting ready to debate. So I prepare 3 times. I don't know that the druid is a 5 yet, but let's say I just start here at the 6 because it could be all the way up here. So I start at 6 and I go 1, 2, 3, and then I say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do my conversion attempt. Oh, I flip over to the druid, so actually I get to start at 5. So 5 is where I start, and then 1, 2, 3. That means that I just need a 2 for nothing to happen. But if I get a 3, 4, 5, 6, then the druid is converted and removed. So when I convert and remove the druid, it just means that their influence is gone. I did a good job of debating that druid. I'm not actually converting that druid. The druid's gone, their influence is gone for now in the area, and then this space is open that says druid or church. Why is that important? Well, now I or someone else, maybe another saint on a different turn, can start building churches. We have level 0 churches, and these are all peace limited, but we have level 0 churches, level 1 churches, level 2 churches, and 1 cathedral, which is a level 3 church. What do these do? Well, going back to our conversion attempt slider, each one is going to add to your conversion attempt based on its level when you're in its area. So a level 1 will add 1, level 2 adds 2, and the cathedral adds 3. Why would I put a 0 though? A 0 prevents druids from popping back up in that area, which will more than likely happen based on those event cards later in the game. So you need to get druids out of the way so they're not influencing the people and the chieftain in the area. Why does that all matter? Well, let's go back to that whole thing that I said mattered, the influence diagram. The influence diagram is how we figure out who can influence who. Well, yeah, so we want to figure out how to convert everyone in Ireland. The High King will influence kings, and kings influence chieftains, but then chieftains influence their people. And in addition to that, if there's a church in the area, or you have special powers, or if there's a dolmen, which is what happens when you fail at a conversion and debate attempt with a druid, then the dolmens pop up and the dolmens actually go in the opposite direction. All those things can affect it, and as you look at the card, one of the worst things, yeah, I'll say worst, because one of the things that could have been clear is it will say for the king that you look at the worst number in the province. Really what you're looking at is things with an absolute value. So if there is any druid in the area, that's going to take out the power of a church in their province in general. And that's why the kings are straddling the lines of all the areas in their province. They can be influenced by druids. So if there's even a single druid, they will take out the influence of any church in the area. But they're still influenced by any dolmens and relics and things like that. It would be a very weird case. In fact, if there's a druid at all, you just can't convert a king. But in any case, look to see if there is a druid there. If there's not a druid there, then you can use any dolmens and relics from each area to influence the king. In fact, you're supposed to use all of those things. It's just that if there is a druid, that kind of overrules everything else, and you're not going to be able to convert that king because of the druid being in one of the areas that is in their province. So what else can I do on my turn besides preparing and converting? Well, you can also move to an adjoining area. Like I could move from here to here. I could build a new church like I did here with this level 0, or I could improve a church. Now, building and improving church, they use different language, but I've already seen that Kevin, the designer of the game, in the rules forums on Board Game Geek has already talked about the fact that they are effectively and for all means and purposes the same action. So building and improving, any language that refers to that on any cards or special powers or things like that, they're the same type of action. You can give or take a card. So when you're playing solo, you'd still need to take an action to take one of your cards and give it to another player. We haven't even talked about it yet, but there are these cards that become available to you in the game and you can look at any point that are called Gifts of the Spirit. The Gifts of the Spirit cards are cards that just do wonderful things, add extra special powers. You can trade those back and forth. There's also cards that let you re-roll in the event deck, and you have to have space for those. And in a 1, 2, and 3 player game, you get to keep 3 cards. In larger player counts, you're only going to keep 2 cards. It's an action to give or take a card from another player. Finally, you could make a relic by flipping over a grave marker. Where do grave markers come from? Well, grave markers pop up when saints die because they've tried too hard. And then let's go into the final effort here. And that's what this last idea is. So there's conversion attempts, which is your final thing where you roll the dice and compare. And always roll the dice if there's a dolmen in your area, because even if it is an auto convert and you get a 6, you get to remove one of those dolmens. So don't forget to roll. But the final effort is like a double prepare and a conversion attempt all rolled into one. The only bad thing about it is your saint dies right away. It's a really powerful move, but your saint dies. So you're going to want to push your luck with it. You just want to push your luck at the right time. And the reason you're going to look for the right time is if your saint doesn't already have one of those 6 let me grab one of those 6 deck versions of another saint in there. So here's Columba. If you haven't maybe grabbed Columba and it's not tucked underneath, then you're going to become an acolyte. And acolytes are kind of annoying because acolytes, well, they're just like this. They're not as good. They only get 4 zeal. They don't have a final effort, and they only have very, very limited action point selection there. So they're not as good. They're not going to have any special abilities. They're not going to be able to do other things. But as soon as you get a new saint card, even if you are an acolyte, you're going to flip back over and become that person, become a new saint. So there are all sorts of things where you're pushing your luck. You're trying to convert people in Ireland, and you're going to be paying attention to what influences you. So people are influenced by the chief is influenced by the king is influenced by the high king, and all of those are influenced by the religious markers and religious people in their areas. Of course, the high king's only influenced by people in Ineal, South Ineal. I'm going to say it wrong, but the king is influenced by their whole province. The chief is influenced by everything in their area, and the people are just limited, again, just like the chief, to stuff in their area. That's the basics of the game. I think we covered everything. I think that's most of it. Oh, one of the most important things that I messed up when I first played on stream, and I want to share with you, is that as you replace, because there's going to be things that make you replace king. So maybe we have this +2 Christian king. This is actually a pretty good Christian king because there's lots of kings. Not king, sorry, this is a chieftain. But there's lots of chieftains who are just 0, so they're kind of agnostic to Christianity. And maybe we were able to convert this one to, this one's even better, this one's a +4. So maybe we were able to convert this king and this chieftain. Well, there might be something, actually, this is a perfect place down here in Munster to mention it, that removes our king here. Well, then what we're going to do is we roll and we compare, and let's say we get a 3. We would be promoting this king to here, and then we'll draw a random, not from the one we just removed, but we'll draw a random chief and place it there where we just removed it in Egonacht. But other things are going to happen, like the people are probably going to become more pagan and so forth. Lots of things happen like that in the game. And so you're constantly balancing out where's the best place to build a church, since those are peace limited, where's the best place to go and do conversion attempts, who's the most powerful, how can my different saints help one another. That is most of the game, except don't forget, I will point out, because I also missed this too, that there's this place here, this place here, and this place here where it says Scotland, Strathclyde, and England become pagan. It's not just when they line up with the blocks on the board, it's with these specific spaces. So look out for those, and that's when you will shuffle in those parts of the deck. Another thing that I use in solo is just I use the bishop marker and keep track of which player I'm using at the time and pass that around. So here's a close-up of a Saint card. We have Palladius with his 2 less Zeal, and Palladius at this point can still use 4 action points. But let's say Palladius was down here and did a final, has 2 action points, is able to do something where he can do a final conversion attempt. Well, he would probably move to where that would be most effective for his first action point, and then for his last action point he's going to use this special power of may make a final effort. So he effectively, let's say that we had flipped over a druid that was this 4. Okay, so the 4 druid is who he's going to be debating. So right now the druid is 4. He's going to make a final effort though, and he gets to go 1, 2, because this is a final effort, and then we would roll, and we get a 5. So the druid is converted and is going to be removed from their area, but Palladius is going to die. So we beat the 2, so something happened, we beat the 2, but Palladius dies. As Palladius dies, that means that we're going to remove his card, flip it over to the Acolyte side if he hasn't had another Saint card tucked, and now we are on this weaker Zeal side with less that we can do. Let's take a look at what would happen in the province where Palladius died. Continuing with our example of Palladius dying, let's say we were up here at this point and Palladius removed this druid but dies. We're just going to drop down a random grave here. Later on, another player, or even the same player, could come in and make a relic by flipping this, just not on the same turn, but flipping this, and then we find out that it's a +2. So that is one of the ways to influence the people and the chief and the king in that area, is with this +2 relic. Of course, at this point, we couldn't influence this king because there's still a druid that is infinitely influential because we don't know what their power is at this point in the game. That's a general overview of Banish the Snakes. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that helps you play the game and not make the same mistakes that I did on my first couple plays. Let me know what you think of the game. Happy gaming, and I'll catch you later.